Today, we are diving deep into the science of testosterone. And what we found, well, it might just change how you think about aging, about health, and maybe even about your own generation. Turns out, the story that most of us have been told, it isn't the whole truth.
So let me ask you a question, straight up. Are you the man your father was, or your grandfather? Because when it comes to one of the most fundamental male hormones, the scientific answer is a pretty shocking no.
And look, this isn't just about the whole natural process of getting older. The data shows this really interesting paradox that's affecting men of all ages, from Gen Z all the way to baby boomers. So let's break down what is really going on here.
All right, let's get into it. Before we hit you with all the surprising science, let's just start with the story that pretty much everyone thinks they know about testosterone and aging. You know the conventional wisdom. It goes something like this. Once a guy hits his 40s, his testosterone starts this inevitable decline, dropping about 1 to 3% every single year. Sounds simple, right? Just a biological fact of life. But what if that's not really the whole picture?
Because this is exactly where that simple story gets, well, really complicated. It's all thanks to a massive scientific analysis of over 10,000 men that basically turned that common belief right on its head.
So this huge study back in 2014 came to a pretty shocking conclusion. They found that, contrary to what everyone thought, after age 40, the average testosterone level across the population doesn't actually go down. It stays remarkably stable. This just completely blows up that story of a steady, age-related drop. So, okay, if the average isn't dropping, then what on earth is going on? Well, the study found the real story. While that average number holds steady, the range of testosterone levels gets way, way wider. In other words, the statistical variance just explodes. So what does high variance even mean in plain English? Think of a classic bell curve. As men get older, that curve just gets flatter and wider. So you end up with a lot more men on the extreme ends, some with really high testosterone and just as many with really low testosterone. The number in the middle, that average, doesn't really change, but the outliers, they become way more common. Now, let's get to the other half of this paradox. We've seen what happens as one big group of men gets older. But what happens when we compare men who are the exact same age, just from totally different generations? You know, if aging isn't the simple answer we thought it was, then why is there so much talk about low testosterone? What's actually happening? This, my friends, is where the story gets truly fascinating. Get ready for this, because this number is an absolute showstopper. The Massachusetts male aging study found that a 60-year-old man in 2004 had on average 17% lower testosterone than a 60-year-old man in 1987. Let that sink in. This isn't about aging anymore. This is a direct apples-to-apples comparison of two generations at the exact same point in their lives. And that wasn't just some fluke. When researchers started digging into broader data, they found this consistent, population-wide drop of about 1% per year, every single year since the late 1980s. And listen, this isn't just an issue for older guys, not at all. A study looked at men aged 15 to 39 and found a significant drop in their average testosterone between 1999 and 2016. What that suggests is that younger men today are literally starting from a lower hormonal baseline than their fathers and grandfathers ever did. So, how can both of these things be true? How can the average stay stable after 40 for one group, while the entire population's baseline is just tanking over time? This is the heart of the paradox, and here's how we solve it. So here's the key. You have to hold two ideas in your head at once. First, as you age, your testosterone level might not automatically fall off a cliff. You might stay stable, or you might drift to the high or low end of a widening spectrum. But second, and this is the big one, the entire spectrum for your generation has shifted down. It's like everyone is running the same race, but each new generation has to start a few yards further behind the starting line. So if every generation is starting with less, the billion-dollar question has to be, why? I mean, what is it about our modern world that's causing this massive hormonal shift? Well, research points to a whole cocktail of modern causes. Rising obesity is a huge one. Body fat has an enzyme that literally converts testosterone into estrogen. Then you add in our less active lifestyles, our chronic lack of sleep, constant stress, and our exposure to all sorts of environmental chemicals that can really mess with our body's hormone system. But here's the wild part.
Scientists, they controlled for all those things. They adjusted the data to remove the influence of rising obesity and smoking rates and all of it. And even after they did all that, a significant decline was still there.
And this is basically where we are today. Yeah, lifestyle and obesity, they explain a big chunk of the problem. But a huge piece of this puzzle, it remains a complete scientific mystery. There's something else going on that we just haven't figured out yet, which is both fascinating and, frankly, a little concerning.
Okay, so let's bring this all back home. With a lower baseline for pretty much everyone and this wider range of outcomes as we get older, what does this actually mean for you and for your health? First things first, let's be crystal clear about what a clinical deficiency, what some people call low T, really is. It is not just a number on a lab report. A real diagnosis needs two things. You need the clinically low levels in your blood, and you need to have persistent, noticeable symptoms.
And these are the key symptoms you want to be aware of. We're talking about stuff like constant fatigue that just won't go away, a drop in sex drive, unexplained mood shifts, or changes in your body, like losing muscle and gaining fat. If that sounds familiar and it's sticking around, it's really worth talking to a doctor, no matter how old you are.
And this might be the most important takeaway of all. As the whole population's baseline has dropped, the normal ranges on lab tests have shifted down right along with it. Just think about that for a second. A testosterone level that's considered perfectly normal for a man today might have actually been flagged as borderline low for a man of the exact same age just a few decades ago. The goalposts themselves have moved.
Which leaves us with this final, really profound question. This is bigger than just one hormone, you know? It's about how our modern world is literally reshaping our biology. In an environment where the very definition of normal is a moving target, how do we figure out what is truly optimal and healthy? Not just for us, but for all the generations that are going to come after us.